quorum.
Not unless we vote on.
Dun, 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 dun. All right, everyone. It is Monday, July 15th, 2024, and we are calling the Select Board meeting to order at 7:03 p.m. With 4 members present. Do we need, well, wait, okay. First, we'll just go through our board and committee openings. The list keeps growing, y'all, and I know there's so many folks who want to get involved, so let's make sure that we pay attention to the board openings. I see that we have some folks who would like to speak online. Just a heads up, we'll do public comment after in just a bit, in which case we will call on folks to make comments. So Conservation Commission has 2 openings. Council on Aging has 2 associate openings. The Cultural Council has 1 opening. The Finance and Advisory Committee has 1 associate opening. That's a good time. Hamilton Development Corporation has 1 opening for a 3-year term. The Historic District Commission has 2 openings for 3-year terms, 2 openings for 2-year terms, and 1 must be a resident of the Historic District and 1 must be a resident realtor. And the Human Rights Commission also has 1 at-large opening. So folks looking for a way to get involved, we'd love for you to hop on a board or committee. At this point, do we want to go ahead and do reports and public comment, or do we want to hold until?
We had said that we were going to start with CPC, so, but if
I just
you
don't
want to-
even see them on here at all.
Annual review of the CPC program.
No, I mean,
Reports?
reports and
Oh.
and public comment.
They'd normally be over here, but we have Corinne in there as well. You can do that, yeah.
Okay. Real fast, I'll just go to the
Real
board.
fast.
Does anybody have any updates or reports from your committees that you'd like to report on?
Yes, I do. Do you want to go first, Beth? Okay. So,
Sorry, that was my mic.
we're not doing the Pledge of Allegiance?
No, we stopped doing that about a year ago.
Oh, we did.
We did.
Okay, so I would like to report on 2 things. First, the ZBA meeting from July 10th, 24. Let's see. They welcomed their newest associate member, Michael Madden, and Amy Questel was there from KP Law. The issue there was that Tobacco Hill Capital Partners withdrew their application for the 40B, and because they did not want to go ahead with the public meeting, because anything that was decided would have been final, and it would not have been an appealable decision. And in concert with that, I've discovered that the Tobacco Hill Capital Partners, in terms of their cases being dismissed, the cases have to be dismissed for 1 year before an applicant can consider reapplying for a 40B project. So the update on that is that the Superior Court case dismissed the stormwater management portion of that. Secondly, the land court, which was the appeal to deny the special permit, the hearing motion to dismiss that will be held on July 31st. There are a lot of judges on vacation. We're not sure that's going to continue on that date, but might be continued. So that's in the works also. Second thing I wanted to talk about was the turf field project. We, the board, and I was especially interested in this. On Long Meadow Road, there were complaints from 2 abutters regarding that most or all of the trees had been removed from the turf field construction site, meaning the back of where the football field was, and that those trees had been removed right up to the property line. I did drive down that road and look at it, and some of the issues that came to mind were privacy issues and light trespass. So that's a concern, and I'm sure that the school district will consider doing some privacy fencing and maybe some very large arborvitae and trees once this project is completed. I have not heard from either of these abutters that the school district had responded to their concerns, so I don't know if that had happened. And then finally, the question of whether the order of conditions by the Conservation Commission for testing and sampling of the wetland sites abutting the construction site had been completed. And I spoke to the chair, Lee McCoy, of the Conservation Commission, and he said it's his understanding that the testing was complete, but they did not have any responses yet. So let me just see if there's anything else I had. Okay. Second thing is regarding the Fields project. The softball and tennis courts, there were 2 permits that were given by the DEP, and the second permit, the softball and tennis courts permit, expired, and that was on hold, but the Concom expects that a new NOI notice of intent will be filed at their 7/24 meeting. So we have to wait to see what that's all about. The other questions that I have are just, are we going to have an update on the status of the amicus brief, especially given the more acute concerns about water that are looming right in front of us? And we need to double check the deadline of that. And then finally, the status of the Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary agreements. We don't have that on our agenda for tonight either. So those are things that I'm interested in tonight, and let's see where they go.
Yep, thank you, Rosie. Bill,
All set.
anything from you?
Quickly, Rosie already mentioned about the athletic fields. I know they're well underway. I had heard as well that some of the abutters had some issues with trees and such. I hadn't heard about the permitting running out. I do know the school committee doesn't meet again until the 15th, so it could be a little dark during now that school ended. As far as the elementary schools, the next milestone there, I think it's July 30th though. That's not a full committee thing, but there is a meeting with the MSBA, and that's when they start moving into the next phase, which is the schematic design phase. So look for that, towards the end of this month. As I said, they're coming back on the 15th. I think the first day of school this year is September 3rd. HDC, a lot of just more of the same going on. They're, busy promoting the downtown plan. As you know, they partially funded the form-based zone study. They're partnering with the community house just to educate the community on gate awareness on the project. They did mention that Shop Local informed them that they would no longer organize and participate in the fall festival. So I don't know what that means relative to who does what, but I did get a note from Scott on that. You've heard of a pocket park in the past, down right on the corner of Railroad and Main Street by the bank, in between there. That's been a slow drag. They're having some issues a little bit with the bank, some insurance issues as well. So they're not optimistic, but they're going to continue to try to go down that path. But right now, it's a struggle. I think that's it for now. I know the HDC, who I haven't been to a meeting, sorry, Jay, but we'll get a great update from them today. Not the HDC, the CPC. That's it.
Awesome. Nothing big from me. I did get an email from David Smith, and we'll put it on the next agenda, that we are revising our keeping of animals regulation. The Board of Health is, for the first time since 1989. So we'll get, on the 35th anniversary of our keeping of animals, we're going to do a revision, and we'll take a look at that in an upcoming meeting. All right, we will continue with the joint meeting with the CPC before stepping back into town manager and public comment, if it's all the same to everybody else. It's like fine. All right. Y'all don't have to do a call to order, I suppose.
I'll do a call. I'm Jay Butler, Chair of the Community Preservation Committee. This is a joint meeting, the Community Preservation and the Select Board. I'll just do a call to order to see, officially record who's here. I'm here. Michelle Horgan, say yay, nay. Robert Preston, Sandy Cotting, Kim Deedle, Bill Wilson, here. Sean Farrell is not here, and Darcy Dale.
I'm here, but I'm online.
Okay.
We
So,
thought for sure you would have come, Sean.
so we have, we have 4 members, so we need 5 for a quorum, so this will be an informational meeting. And I will give a presentation on the state of the CPC, but I had hoped to vote on our last meeting minutes, but we won't do that. So, do you want me to launch
I'm
into my-
sorry to interrupt your meeting. Can you hear me?
Mr. Memo, we're not doing public comment until after the CPC presentation. Please mute.
I understand I'm kind of in a bind and I have service now, and I apologize.
Go ahead, Jay.
Okay. This
Can
is,
I respectfully just talk for a moment?
We've already started this
I'm
joint meeting,
requesting
so we'll have to
respectfully
wait
speak.
until after the joint meeting.
I understand. I understand. I'm a lineman in Ohio and I have service here and I have to move. I just need to say a few words. I don't know if you can see me, but I do need to speak to this committee and I need help with this committee. And I just need a few moments of your time and then you can continue the meeting and I can leave and go restore power across the country.
I
Is that
understand.
okay?
I understand, Mr. Remo, and I'm sorry, but we have already started the joint meeting, and it is not time for public comment, and we do not have an agenda item on the list to discuss your item, so you will have to wait until the
Okay,
joint portion is done, and then we can absolutely talk.
Okay, let me say what I gotta say. You're not understanding me. I'm autistic. This last 6 months has been hell for me as long as the town as
Mr. Mebo,
well.
I genuinely
no one
am
knows-
deeply empathetic and sympathetic. I have already answered 3 times now. We are out of order, and we have already started the joint meeting. I'm going to ask Joe to mute you, but if you wait, we will absolutely pick you up during public comment.
I will do my best to wait, and I will mute myself.
Thank you.
This is an informational meeting. This is required by the Community Preservation Act. And so with that, we'll go forward. A copy of this PowerPoint will be on our webpage later this week. Next slide. We have 9 members of the Hamilton CPC Committee with Coordinator Laurie Wilson. Recent changes, Sean Farrell moved from the Select Board rep to an at-large position. Bill Wilson just joined us as a Select Board rep, and Darcy Dale just joined us as the Planning Board rep. We're down 1 member. We need a rep from the Historic District Commission, but their committee needs so many members, I think we're going to have to live with 8 members for a while, and we can do that. Next slide, just a bit of history. The CPA Act became law in Mass in the year 2000. Hamilton adopted in 2005. Right now, 196 of 351 communities have signed up for it. And these communities choose from a 1% to 3% surcharge on their property taxes. We have a 2%. The money where the money comes from the state match associated with this, comes from something called the CPA Trust Fund, which is managed by the Mass Department of Revenue. And they set and distribute a state match to the communities in November of each year. And the money that they distribute comes from all the property transaction fees from the Mass Registry of Deeds offices throughout the state. So as so goes the real estate market, so goes how much money we get as a state match. And then finally, there's a possibility that the state, if they have any budget surplus, could vote some money into the pot as well. And you'll see in a minute what they've done in the past. This is a historical trust fund distributions from the initiation of the CPA up until last year. And you can see on 6 different occasions, the legislature did vote a budget surplus to swell the pot to increase the amount of state match we get. That didn't happen last year. It's not like it happened this year. This next slide is the history of the Hamilton, the local surcharge collection, the state match, the percent of the state match, and the total dollars. So you can see how what we've reaped from the state, what we've collected from our own citizens since we've signed up in the year 2005. The state mass estimate, it's unlikely to be any surplus funds for this year. This is a prediction made by the Community Preservation Coalition in May of this year. The Registry of Deeds revenues are down 26% in April 24 versus 23, and in general, the Registry of Deeds collections are down 10%. The state match for November of this year is estimated at 14.4%, down from 21% last year. I threw in this slide on the mass millionaires tax. I wasn't aware of this, but it didn't come up on my taxes this year. Perhaps some of you dealt with it. There was an amendment voted to the Mass Constitution in November 22 with the effectivity for last year, the tax year 2023, that provides for a 4% surcharge on any individual tax income over $1 million. And surprisingly to the legislature, generated $1.8 billion in unexpected state revenue. And while it's restricted to be used for education and transportation projects, the idea being that this extra money for education and transportation might transfer over to allow some money to be freed up to maybe put in the pot for the Community Preservation Fund. That's speculation, and I've traded emails with the coalition on this, but I don't know if it'll happen, but we can only hope. In terms of how we did last November, you can see that we had a total revenues of $673,000 for our 2% revenue plus the state match. And I put in Wenham because they're our nearest neighbors. They have a 3% surcharge revenue, so not only do they get a little bit more on the state match, they get a couple of extra distribution rounds of extra funds. It only adds up to be about $100,000 in total, so it's not a whole lot. But as a proponent of the 3% surcharge, and I'm not recommending we do it, but I'm a proponent of it, if we had had a 3% surcharge last November, we would have collected $1 million, just over $1 million versus 670. I did a survey, as I've done the last several years, for all the communities in Essex County to show which communities don't have any participation in the CPA and those that do and their corresponding percentage. Swampscott will vote this year. Danvers tried to embrace it last year. It was voted down at their town meeting. Amesbury recently voted it in at 1%. The rest of them are fairly standard. I also looked at the Essex County's tax rate and their CPA involvement, just to see if there's a correlation. There isn't. So what I show is the highest, second highest, third highest tax rates in Essex County, and then the lowest, second lowest, third lowest, and finally to bracket it, I have the highest in Mass and the lowest in Mass. So you can see that Wenham is the perennial favorite every year for the highest. We were second last year, now we're third. Rockport's been the lowest for a while. And the highest and lowest in Mass tend to move around, but you can see the bracket from $2 per thousand up to 22. What is the surcharge cost to citizens? I show you this table here, the assessed valuation of the property in the first column, what the property tax is annually, and then the annual 2% surcharge. So if you just look at the $1 million property, they pay $15,000 in taxes, and $272 a year for the surcharge. And that's a quarterly, that's a full year payment, it's billed quarterly with the taxes. So on a monthly basis, it's not a lot of money in my mind for somebody who owns $1 million property. And then just to mention 3% again, if we had a 3% surcharge, you'd only add $135 to that 270 number, so it'd be $400 a year, 100 every quarter. And then finally, at the bottom of the slide, I show you how the surcharge is calculated. There are exemptions. The first $100,000 valuation is exempt for all residents. And then from a state perspective, anybody who has received the annual elderly 41D exemption don't have to pay the surcharge. And there are exemptions for seniors 60 and above and low-income families in Hamilton. And the next slide shows the income brackets for low-income non-seniors and property owned by seniors over 60. And this is a full exemption from having to pay the surcharge. And the application is via our assessor's office. Just a little background on the application process. On the next slide, we have a two-part application. One is for eligibility, where we need 5 members of our group to approve it. And this is where we dig into what somebody's asking for. Can they do it? Is it eligible under the rules? And there are rules. And for the most part, it frequently requires input of town council to sort it out. This is a law, and we all know when it comes to laws, that they can be interpreted by lawyers, and so we need our town council help many times. The second part is the funding application. Again, we need 5 members to approve. This is where we review their cost estimate, look at our reserves. We ask Wendy Markowitz, our finance director, if we have any money. We make decisions whether we need to bond the project if it's too big for us to offer cash. Then finally, if we approved, it goes to town meeting. It's a simple majority vote at town meeting. Unless there's a bond, then it's a 2/3 vote. But when the CPC votes something like this through these 2 meetings, it automatically goes on the warrant article for town meeting. There are reviews, detailed reviews by the select board and finance and advisory committees, but they're advisory only, and their recommendations are printed in the warrant alongside ours. And then we have an internal rule that we voted through a while ago that any project we approve, you've got to start it within 2 years, or we have the right to review it and revoke it. We had an issue many years ago that we had one project sit on our books for 7 years with no action, and we don't want to have that happen again. The next slide is something developed by the Community Preservation Coalition. And it's a short form to how you can look at and say, if you have an idea for a grant, is it eligible? So across the top, you see open space, historic, recreation, community housing, and down the left side, vertically acquire, create, preserve, support, rehabilitate, and it says yes or no. And this is the quick review of, can you do this? Can you ask for a grant? And interesting, under support, the only thing you can support is housing. Hence, we just approved the housing production plan, which is kind of a support for new housing. Under historic, you can't create historic fixtures. We did have a situation, though, just recently at last annual town meeting where we voted in a new building to house the Model T fire truck. And at first glance, that wouldn't be eligible, but our lawyers looked at it, and due to the actual wording of the law and whatever, the fact that the building is being built to protect the historic asset, we were advised by town council that we could vote for that. The rest of it is just, you can read for yourself. I have a comment in here about artificial turf. This came up with the whole debate the last couple of town meetings. To clarify the Community Preservation Act. The initial law in 2000 allowed CPA funds for artificial turf on athletic fields. You could do that. However, it precluded rehabilitation of existing facilities. So communities like Boston, Cambridge, and some of the bigger communities that had outdated, rundown parks and recreation, you couldn't use artificial turf. And in fact, you couldn't spend any CPA money on it. There was an amendment that took 5 or 6 years to get finally through the legislature that finally allowed CPA funds to use to rehab existing facilities. And one sentence was added to the law. With respect to recreational use, the acquisition of artificial turf for athletic fields shall be prohibited. That's the entire law. That's it. So the lawyers have a field day with interpreting that, as you might expect. So in 2024, there's multiple interpretations. Only artificial turf is prohibited. The dirt stone-based foundation is excluded as well, or no use of CPA funds on the entire project if you used artificial turf. And it's all over the map. The current situation in Hamilton is the $800,000 that you approved at the town meeting will be used for the amenities building on the field. So it has nothing to do with the fields per se. It's the concession, bathroom, storage building. Next slide is, this is the total history of dollars from our CPC to the organizations in the community. There's only 20, and the top, 6, 5 of them are town-based communities. The green represents town-related organizations. As you can see, the bulk of the grants and the size of the grants tended to be shaded towards town facilities, which is what you want, because what you want is the CPA grants to help lower the burden on the voters. The next slide, they put in some stats. So the number of town organizations receiving grants were 12 out of 20, and the number of grants, 79 out of 96, and 10 million out of the total of 14 million. So I think we've been doing a good job as far as steering the money towards facilities and projects needed by the town. The next is a look at how we did among the 3 categories: open space and recreation, historic preservation, community housing. And you can see the total number of grants for each, the percent, total dollars, percent of total dollars. I won't go through it, but there's an imbalance. Community housing clearly gets a short end of the stick in all cases. And this is an area where I believe we need to focus on, because this law was written to have a balance among these 3. And just as a background, there's only 2 instances I can remember where our committee said no to a community housing grant. That was Long Meadow Way. That was, when it came to town meeting, was voted down by the entire town almost. And one other time when the Affordable Housing Trust was first formed, they asked for an extremely large sum of money of several $100,000, but didn't have any projects in mind, so we gave them a smaller amount to start out with and said come back. So every time they've asked for money, we've given them money. We've never turned them down except for that one project. So next slide. In terms of this past year, what have we done? What have you done as voters? At the 2023 fall special town meeting, we approved $500,000 more for town hall. At the last ATM, a couple months ago, we approved 3 grants: Asbury Commons, the fire truck building, and the housing production plan update. Currently, grants that are open: Town Hall, $4.5 million, the middle school, high school facilities, $800,000, Asbury Commons, $500,000, fire truck, $150K, and the housing production plan. All of these grants are approved, all of the money is sitting, and if somebody were to submit an invoice, we could pay it. But nobody's drawn any money yet. We have some bonds running, and just a note that the annual bond repayment is limited to the annual 2% surcharge. We can't use any state money to pay for bonds. We've got two, Sagamore Hill, the current bond repayment is about 103 grand. This runs until 2032. It was voted in 2015 with a $1.25 million bond for 15 years. The Hamilton Town Hall renovation, addition, and preservation project, the recent premium was $345,000. This matures in 2043, the 20-year grant, 20-year bond. This consists of a grant for $3 million voted in 2020 and a $1 million grant passed in 2021, totaling $4 million. And just for the record, there's been a total of 6 CPA grants on this project since its initiation in 2017, and they total just under $5 million. These next few slides, we were asked several years ago by the Select Board to develop a forward-looking radar, if you will, to keep track of what we see on the horizon. So we developed a system called Future Anticipated Potential CBA Grants. It's purely speculation in many areas. We hear things from our fellow members, we hear things in the Select Board, and so we put them on this list so we keep track. So every month when we have our just general discussion among members of Ask What's Going On, we check on these things to see if they're becoming a reality or should we expect a grant request, et cetera, et cetera. The first is the Category A. This is an eligible project, good cost estimate, strong support. We don't have any. So in other words, we don't see any near-term projects that meet this criteria. That could change. Category B is there's some question on eligibility, there's a cost guesstimate, and the project needs a little more definition. In this case, there's a rec project on the Pingree Park tennis court. Since it comes under the Hamilton Wenham Recreation Department, even though that's in Wenham, we can support that with a grant. This project's been kicking around for 4 or 5 years, and in fact, we've had a meeting on it where one of the people proposing something came before us. And it's alive and well, but I don't know where it's going. It's either gonna be a skateboard park, pickleball, or revamp of the tennis courts. Who knows? It's real. The next, Category C, no project, costs unclear, project support in question. These are pure speculation on my part, but just to keep track of them. They're all affordable housing. One is the Gordon Conwell Seminary. Affordable housing due to the MBTA communities law, rezoning. And finally, the affordable housing at Essex Street, 40B development. We put them on here to keep track of them, keep our ear to the ground, and see if we see anything emerging that would require our looking at a grant. The last, Category C, is a roof for the American Legion building. For those of you who don't know, the town owns the American Legion building. It's leased at no cost to the Legion. And we heard about this 5 or 6 years ago, but there's been no word since. Patton Park improvements, we don't know of any, but when I saw the report last year, I can't imagine there might be something they might need money for, so I put it in here as a placeholder. And finally, I just learned about another project that may come through the Concom of removal of invasive phragmites vegetation along the Miles River. We shall see if that comes to us or not. Finally, the state of our reserves. My financial advisor is sitting in front of me. We didn't have enough money this past annual town meeting to fully fund all approved grant requests. It's the first time it's ever happened since 2005. The request from the Affordable Housing Trust for the latest project was for $1 million. We could only afford $500, which is what you all approved. The recent initiation of the 20-year town hall bond somewhat restricts bonding of larger projects until 2032, when we pay off the Sagamore Hill bond. And right now, the total reserves are at 800, or actually 900. Wendy and I have been trading emails. It's up to almost 900 nowadays. But it's dispersed among several accounts. We have 5 internal, at least 5, maybe more, internal accounts for open space and rec, historic preservation, community housing, we have an administrative, and then we have kind of an unreserved one. And once the money gets put anywhere but in the unreserved, you can't take it out of there. So the money, this 800 or 900 grand, is dispersed. So for any one project, we don't have a lot of money for a big project. And finally, we need to focus on the emerging community house grants, not only because we haven't spent a lot of money on them, but that's what we see happening in town, is that. Finally, final comments. We'd appreciate more advanced information from organizations intending to apply for grants, hence this meeting. We will reach out as necessary to coordinate with the Wenham CPC for projects we share, likewise with the Hamilton Wenham Rec Department, Community House, and Hamilton Regional School Department. All of these organizations ask both communities for CPC money. More detailed info on what I've just presented in 70 pages is available in our annual report that's now on our webpage. Our meeting's at 7 o'clock on the second Thursday of most months, and we really encourage public attendance, and input is encouraged. We have no limit on speakers or whatever. And finally, if you need information or applications, Wendy, Laurie Wilson is our coordinator. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments about what Jay's presented?
I have just one question to clarify a definition. I've always seen the title affordable housing, and I noticed it's changed to community housing. Does that change the parameters for making it affordable housing, or can we do any community housing without necessarily an affordable component?
We could do any community housing for the most part, but we rely on the Affordable Housing Trust. We're not about, we wouldn't approve any housing project unless going through the Affordable Housing Trust.
Okay, but to your point, you just said that community housing doesn't necessarily mean affordable housing, so I'm just trying to.
I think it does mean affordable housing.
You've
Yeah,
just
yeah.
changed
Yeah,
the term,
I'm
the
sorry.
definition
I'm
hasn't
sorry.
changed. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Jay, thanks so much for putting, or Jay and everyone else, thanks so much for putting that together and sharing with the group. Do you need to close your meeting?
I
No?
can?
Okay.
Shall I close our meeting? Okay, let me just do a quick roll call, and we'll close out the CPC portion. Please say yes or no. I say yes. Ask Bill Wilson,
Yes?
Sean Farrell,
Yes?
and Darcy Dale.
Yes.
Okay, again, since we only had 4 members, it was an official meeting, but we do publish meeting notes and make it a point that it wasn't an official meeting, but we didn't vote anything. So,
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Yeah, that was a nice presentation, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your thoroughness.
thank you.
I am going to take public comment, and then we'll get in, where did Corinne, oh, you're right there. And then we'll get to your portion, that's right. All right, so we will open public comment. Just a reminder to folks, public comment is 3 minutes on a topic that is not on the agenda. If it is on the agenda, we ask that you hold your comments until the agenda item comes up. At the end of 3 minutes, one of us will ask that you end your public comment, and typically there will not be responses from the boards as a part of public comment as due course. So Eric, at this time, we can recognize you to speak if you have service.
Okay, 3 minutes doesn't give me a lot of time, so I'm gonna go as quick as I can. Again, these last 6 months have been hard for me. I've been born autistic. I was beaten at the age of 1, and for the last 40 years, I have not been the man I really am. People know about the brain, but they don't know what they do. My mother had cancer. They took out a softball size of her brain, and it took her 6 months for her head to rewire itself so she could have those communications put back together. And my brain's been rewiring itself for the last 6 months, and that explains my behavior. But my brain is done, and let me tell you, it is very unique. This town keeps talking about money. Well, inventions bring money. And the town manager, Joseph, saw already I have a patent filed for my first invention, but I didn't build one of these things, I built 3. So money is not gonna be the issue, I can tell you that right now. The issue is what do I do with it? And I love this goddamn town, and I want this town to love me. I've had nothing but 7 years of trouble from this town. This town has done a lot of bad to me, and it really irritates me, because I love the fucking town, I'm sorry to swear. What else do I gotta say? Right now, the only thing I care about is the bus stop I wanna build for the children in this town. Right now, this committee, I need 2 things from it. I need 1, to recognize there are trees there that need to be removed, because I'm not gonna build a bus stop, they're gonna have trees fall on it. Even though what I intend to build, a tree will fall on it, and I'll laugh. Because when I build something, I don't build to mass code, I build to hurricane code. I'm a lineman. You have no idea what it's like when a hurricane comes. And, so that's the thing stopping my project right now from building a bus stop for these kids. If you can get that tree approval done tonight, so Tim can do his job and the other guy can do his job, and I can finally get a green light to start this project. At this point, the only thing I can try to get accomplished is get the trees out of there, get the site work done, and get the concrete pad done before school season starts, and then I'll build the structure. I want to get all site excavation done. I don't want to have an open site when kids are standing near a bus stop. The other thing I need from this committee is we got to vote to let the police, and I don't need a detail. I don't need taxpayers paying for a detail. It's a very easy detour. I can close it at the corner of Forest and Gregory Island Road, and there's a little detour going around it, and people can go around the site, and it's not a big deal. So police are not required for the site work there. We will just shut the road down during construction, little detour, and that's it. Those are my things I need from this committee. As far as drawings and what I intend to build, I don't have time to do that right now, but I will get you all that stuff when I get back from Chicago. Thank you very much for your time. And again, I apologize for the last 6 months, but when the brain rewires itself, I had no idea what was going on, and doctors have been lying to me for 40 years. But people are done lying to me. People are done mistreating me. Autistic people are not fucking stupid. And let me tell you, I got a brain like no others. And if you think we are, go on YouTube and Google Autism is Great and meet the woman that was born in 1940. And she talks about how autistic people are the ones that actually run freaking California and build all this stuff. What I intend to build is wild. You think Patton made a mark on this town? You talk about problems? I'm building a bus stop for my son now, but give me time and I'll build a high school for this freaking town. Because I'm taking care of not only my son, but I'm taking care of everyone in this town.
Eric, thank you so much for your comments. I will just say, the process that you've outlined for the continuation of the project that you brought to the board will require additional interaction with perhaps the planning board, especially as it pertains to changes to the site review. So someone here, either Joe or Tim or someone else, will follow up with you and let you know what we need to do to move that project forward. But there can't be any votes taken on anything tonight, just because there is, there's a process, but we'll make sure that you understand what that process is. He's gone. Well, bye. All right, any other public comment in the room or online? Absolutely come up here and state your name and where you live.
My name is Don Perkins. I live at 20 Canterbrook Lane. I'm a member of the Environmental Impact Committee, but I'm speaking tonight as an individual because there's been no formal action by the committee regarding this. I would like to speak to the opt-in specialized building code that the state has created. Opt-in, I would like the town to opt in. We already support the supplemental code. Basically, the only changes to the specialized code would be for new construction and major renovation. What it does is essentially we're pre-wiring buildings. If you were building a new house, you would pre-wire for electric heat and electric appliances. If the builder were to choose to not use fossil fuel appliances, for instance, they would still have to pre-wire for electric so that the buyer of the house, the owner of the house, can subsequently change to all electric without having to spend the extra cost of building wiring. So it's just a plug and play, switch out a gas stove, put in an electric. And that's the nut of the specialized code. I would like the town to adopt it. Let me see. There are currently approximately 45, because towns are adopting it already, as several of them adopted it this spring. But there's 256 with the stretch code. 45 of those have adopted the specialized code. And if anybody's interested, I have maps showing which building code is applicable for which town. And that's what I just like to encourage, that the select board, I guess this has to be done with a town meeting through a warrant. So I would like to suggest to the select board that they produce a warrant article at the next town meeting to adopt the specialized code.
Thanks so much. Joe, one of us will follow up as far as, I think there'd probably be additional information or impact assessment that we'd want to do because somebody will have to sponsor it going on the warrant. So we'll follow up with next steps in terms of what we as a board would want to see in order to endorse it being on the warrant for town meeting. Make
Okay.
sense? Cool.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, moving right along. Anybody else, public comment in the room or online? All right, we will roll forward. Corinne is here to discuss appointment of election workers for our 24-25 elections. Corinne, welcome.
Good evening, Corinne Kale, Town Clerk. Thank you guys for having me here. Hard to imagine, July 15th, and we're already into the process for the September 3rd state primary. So lots of information I've uploaded on the clerk's webpage, so I encourage folks to go there to get the link to check in your voter status, the dates for early voting, the sample ballots I put up today. Vote by mail postcards have been mailed from the Secretary of State's office. We started receiving those today, so we're on our way to the September 3rd state primary. One of the things by law, Chapter 54, Section 12, that I'm required to do with your cooperation is to appoint election workers. The period is always September 1st through August 31st. And there's a process we must follow, which we have. We like to stay compliant on these kinds of things. The chairs of the town committees, the Republican and the Democratic town committee, are required to be contacted to identify any of their members who would like to work as poll workers. They had until June 1st to get back to me. They did. And then between July 15th and August 15th, the select board is to appoint the poll workers to work over that time period. So in your packet, you have the list of 46 names of folks who have either worked in the past, who have stepped forward to ask to work, or have been referred from those committees. So again, just trying to stay compliant with the law, and I do need to bring it to you and have you make those appointments.
Awesome. Are we taking a vote?
Yeah.
Okay.
She needs to vote tonight.
So I will entertain a motion to approve the appointment of the election workers for the 2024-2025 election.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion about the list of poll workers that's been given to us?
It's a big list.
Good list. Do you have any trouble this year?
Not really, no. We dig deep. A lot of people work during the day, so they're the ones who are willing to come at the end of the night to help sort ballots and to actually do the tallying. But we have some, at this point for me, long-time, daytime workers, so we're doing okay.
Do we have a pre-plan for feeding y'all?
She She has it in her
It's in my
budget.
budget.
It's in your budget, okay.
Definitely, thank you. That's
I
a
just-
great thing to think about.
I just want to make sure y'all are, it's going to be a doozy. I want to make
Well,
sure
the
y'all have
primary
food.
won't be too bad. I mean, if you take a look at the sample ballots, it's, there's very few contested races on this, in any party. In fact, the Libertarian ballot is completely blank.
Oh.
Blank, not even one name. So, it's, you know, it's kind of a quiet election. November, I don't think I'll be saying the same thing.
No, no. All right.
Okay?
With that, I will take a vote. All in favor? Is that? Aye. Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fran.
Okey dokey. Next is the consent agenda. There are 3 items on the consent agenda. The first is the approval of the minutes from June 17th, the approval of Patton Park for the annual ECTA 5K trail run, and improving the extension of the noise ordinance at Patton Homestead for the movie nights in August. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second from Olson. All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, awesome. Just a quick heads up, we are going to move into the main agenda now. We're going to move things around just a little bit if it's fine for everyone. I believe we have the new owners of Hamilton House here, as well as Larry is on the phone for the change of manager for Harrigan's. So we're going to just go ahead and get those 2 things out of the way, just so that those folks can go on with their evening, if that's okay. And then Holly will get right into you, if that's all right. Perfect. All right, so first things first, welcome to the new owners of Hamilton House who are here for an approval of the common victualers license for, is it staying Hamilton House? Is that? It's going to stay the Hamilton House. All right, anything we need to know about this?
Laura, everything's clear?
Everything is clear according to Lori. So I will entertain a motion to approve the common victualers license for Hamilton House of Pizza.
So moved.
So moved.
Second?
Second from Bill Wilson. Any comments, questions? We're enthusiastic.
Yeah.
We can't wait. My 10-year-old needs someplace to wander to with his wallet and eat, so this is, he'll be there, don't you worry, we're just 2 blocks away. All right, with no further ado, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, perfect. You don't have to stay. We will not be offended if you get up and walk out. Secondly, we have an approval of the change of manager for Harrigan's Liquor Store. Do I need to have the details of this?
Everything.
Everything's in the packet. Everyone feels good. So I will entertain a motion to approve the change of manager for Harrigan's Liquor Store.
Second.
Perfect. Any discussion?
Just, where's that person? Is she on?
You said Larry is on?
Yeah, Larry is the owner,
The-
right? So. Larry is going to be the new manager.
Oh, Larry's
Larry.
gonna. Oh, is this a promotion? Congratulations, Larry.
Larry, can you unmute and address the board?
Thank you.
Thank you. Good.
So Larry, you're gonna be the new manager?
Manager, yes,
Perfect. You feel up to the task?
I do.
Okay. As long as you feel good, we feel good.
Excellent.
All right. Any additional questions or concerns before we take a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, Larry, we'll see you there.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome to stay, but you're also welcome to go.
Except for pizza and
Yeah,
liquor.
pizza and liquor. What a
Liquor
deal.
tonight.
All right. Next up, we have Holly here to request the acceptance of the gift donation from the Friends of Patton Homestead, along with Deb.
That's right. We have Deb Lannon and Holly Erickson, and we have Deb Lannon here who co-wrote the grant for the Mass Cultural Council capital grant that we've been raising money for the pavilion at the Patton Homestead. And so I'd like to introduce Deb Lannon to present the funds for approval.
Thank you, Holly. My name is Deborah Lannon, and I'm a member, as Holly said, of the Board of Directors of the Friends of Patton Homestead. As you and those listening online may already know, the mission of the Friends of Patton Homestead is to preserve history, honor veterans, and welcome community. On behalf of the entire Friends Board, and in keeping with our mission to welcome community to the grounds of the homestead, I'm privileged to present to the town of Hamilton this check for $25,000 for design and construction of the new Joanne Holbrook Patton Pavilion at Patton Homestead, which will function as an open-air shelter against the elements for community groups, concerts, lectures, and private gatherings. The board would like to thank the following corporate sponsors for their generosity in helping to make this happen: Leslie Ray Insurance, Texture Technologies, McLean Middleton Law Firm, Salem 5 Bank, Patton Veteran Project, and the Patton Foundation. We'd also like to thank the many individuals who donated privately to this project, both online and in person during various fundraising events, 4 of which were coordinated by Holly and 3 by the Friends. Without the generosity of these individuals, I would not be presenting this to you tonight. This check for $25,000, along with $50,000 from the town of Hamilton, will provide the pavilion project with $75,000 with additional matching funds in the amount of $75,000 from the Massachusetts Cultural Council. Friends of Patton Homestead would also like to thank the Select Board, Holly, Joe Demilovich, and the town of Hamilton for its support in this effort. The Friends are excited to continue to partner with the town as the project moves forward into the design and planning stage. The Joanne Holbrook Patton Pavilion will be a lovely community asset to the property and to the town, as well as a beautiful reminder of the service of Joanne Holbrook Patton. I respectfully request the Select Board to approve the acceptance of this check.
Need a motion to accept the gift from the Friends of Patton Homestead for the purpose of completing the work at the Holbrook Patton Pavilion.
That motion sounds right up your alley, Bill Wilson.
I move that we accept a gift from the Patton Friends for the construction of a new pavilion.
Terrific.
Second that.
Second. Yeah, Holly, well done. Well done to everybody.
So did you write the grant that got us the matching 75,000?
The entire board wrote
The
the
entire
grant.
board wrote it together. That's great. What a
Well-
good collection of people coming together to get the 150,000.
With the help of, I may add, with the help of Joe and Holly.
It
Excellent.
was Holly.
Holly.
I knew that.
All right, well, congrats. If there's no further questions or comments?
To vote it, right?
Oh, I thought she meant.
Put this on the website.
We'll vote right now. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, the ayes have it.
Great.
Well done.
So
Joe's just gonna put it in his pocket. No worries. It'll be taken care of.
Tim, I need you to walk me out to my car and then.
Yeah,
yeah, may I give him the envelope?
yeah.
Yeah, okay, good.
Oh,
That'd be great.
Caroline?
no, I
Yes,
think
you're the chair.
you're doing a great job. Well done.
That's awesome.
Yay! All right, the next, gosh, I don't want to hear about it. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the fees and interest rate for the septic loan program. I have the background on this. So as you know, we approved the program, and since then, there's been a lot of back and forth around whether or not we would charge an application fee and what the interest rate would be. And the Board of Health and David specifically have done a lot more deep dive, and essentially the proposal that we're making is that we charge an application fee of $250 and we settle on an interest rate of 4%. The term is 20 years. The reason is because there are fees associated with like administrative fees associated with the program that go through the state, and it's about $500 per application and so the idea is that the $250 will cover part of that fee, and then the 4% over the course of the loan will obviously make back the fees that we owe to the state, plus cover any administrative costs that we incur in the town, whether it's the town's time, energies, and efforts to manage the program itself. We did pull a list of other towns that have the programs. I think the interest rates run between 2 and 6% is what we pulled. And some of them are older programs that tend to have lower. The newer programs obviously have sort of higher rates. And then the fees range from $0 up to, I think we saw some fees that were, $500, which was just a direct pass-through cost, I assume. So this felt right to us, the $250 application fee. I think you have to be taking it seriously to file the fee, but it's not, an absorbent fee. It's not outside of the norm for what other folks are charging. And then the 4% should more than cover our costs, as well as the fees that we incur by the state. Any questions? Concerns? I had questions about how it compounds. Do you have? Okay. I don't know. I mean, I assume that's up to us, but we should figure that out.
So we just went to town meeting, were these the numbers, 4%, and was there an application fee?
There wasn't, we didn't put it, it was just the approval of
The program.
the program itself.
And
We didn't talk about an interest rate.
I think it was left open so that the board and the Board of Health could determine what the appropriate amount would be. I think the discussion at the time, and John, you can tell me if I'm wrong, was that once you had more definition around what the cost might be to the town, that would be the right time to set what the fees would be.
Yep.
Okay.
So if this feels right, I would entertain a motion to approve the $250 fee and the 4.5% interest rate for the septic loan program.
It's just a 4%. Isn't it just 4%?
Yeah.
My notes say 4%, not 4.5.
Sorry, 4%. Did I say 4.5?
You accidentally said 4.5.
I didn't mean 4.5. I couldn't read my own handwriting. Y'all, with inflation, what it is, it's at the moment that you approve it is what we get. So it's, $250 fee, 4% interest. If somebody wants to make a motion, we can discuss it further.
I'll make a motion that we approve the septic program fee and interest rate.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Does this feel right to folks? Is there any questions?
Have we had any applications?
No, we just,
You can't until you set
Okay.
up.
yeah, we have to like finalize the program, which is what this is, so that when folks, we'll add it to the website.
It is my understanding the Board of Health discussed this and voted to make this recommendation.
Is everything
So
else
it's-
clear in terms of like the minimum max you can borrow and how much you have to put up? I mean, is that all, we're not talking about the whole terms? But is
Yes.
everything else pretty clear?
Yeah, it's,
And we've completed all the work with the state, so
This is the only thing
we'll be able to
missing
get the
from that.
money in
Okay,
to
so
be able to
we've
start.
vetted everything else out.
yep,
My understanding is you can change the regulation next year. If you want to cut the interest rate to 2%, a year from now, you can just do it again.
yep.
So I think it's at your discretion.
Mm-hmm.
That's my understanding.
And a question I have is that, can people, it says it's 20 years max, can people just pay it off sooner and avoid any further interest, or how is that working?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
And then I think it's also, again, this is the part that the Board of Health and the FinCom have been doing, but I think it's also, if you sell your house and leave Hamilton, you have to pay off the loan before you leave
Yeah,
the town.
The loan doesn't go
There's
with the buyer.
a lien on the.
Yep.
On the deed, yep,
Yep.
okay. That makes sense.
And it's residential only. It is not for commercial users.
So does this money sit in a town account, or?
Yeah, the money will be received by the town and put into a separate special account that the treasurer will manage.
And it can only be used in support of the program?
Mhm. I think it's $500,000 was the initial ask for the program, which is what we opened the account for. And then depending on the popularity of the program, we can, as John said, we can revisit it from time to time. Yes, did we have a public comment?
Hi, y'all. Sean Farrell, 15 Hamilton Ave. Just wanted to comment about everything was ironed out beforehand besides the rate and the fee, because then town meeting approved it. If it approved the rate and the fee, it'd have to go back to town meeting. So this allows your board to shift as things change without going back to town meeting.
And typically, the select board does set fees for all things in town, so it keeps consistency with the way things are normally set.
So I think your current assessment's good, and I think if you have to revisit it in a year, people have comment, you can change it. So.
Yep.
It's a good starting point.
We also wanted it to be competitive with what would be available in the market. I mean, because part of the assumption is that you cannot get, a personal loan would have a much, much, much higher interest rate. Even a home equity loan or a line of credit would have, even if it had an ARM or a variable, it would be considerably higher. So we wanted it to be accessible. Do you have a comment?
Stephen McWhorter, 18 Cunningham Drive. Very well explained. I think I heard, because we did go to the health meeting, just for the citizens, for somebody single and then maybe a couple, there's kind of like a threshold of like what your income is, just so somebody could understand like if they even qualify.
I don't even think there isn't an income qualification. It's for anybody.
It's a loan program. So
Okay.
the assumption is that anybody who owns, any resident. who
Anybody
owns-
with a septic
who owns
system.
a house and has a septic system that fails, they could apply to this, they could apply to this.
There's no
Good.
equity requirement.
Good to know then. And I think Joseph, you just said the key thing. I think I heard they said you have to have a failed certificate. You have to fail.
Yes, you have to fail.
Okay. so
It
that's how
isn't
you get
for maintenance or upgrades. It's for like Title V failures, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's a good program.
It's an excellent program.
Well done.
All right, I will take a vote then. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it unanimously. All right, y'all, it is that time of year. We received an email from our good friend Tim. Tim he's single-handedly responsible for global warming that's caused the water restrictions. But there is low flow in the Ipswich River, and so it's time for us to take a look at the enhanced summer water restrictions and how we can do our part to mitigate. So Tim, I'm going to let you talk about what it is that's being asked, and then we will be asked to take a vote to approve said water restrictions.
Yeah, Tim Olson, DPW Director. This time of year, you're right, we haven't got a lot of rain and the river levels are decreasing. Typically what we have a seasonal ban that prohibits sprinklers from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. That's current. That's every year, depending on how much, it doesn't matter how much rain we get. That's something in our permit that we have to abide by. Once we see levels of the river start to decrease, what I'm asking tonight is to increase the ban one level to prohibit sprinklers throughout the day. So no nighttime watering. What I do, if there are people that have lawns that they're trying to establish, if they've done a landscaping project, trying to establish a new lawn, I ask for those people to call in and tell me what their plan is. We can work together. I've done that in the past to allow, it's not to prevent growth of a lawn. It's basically if you have a lush green lawn, it's in good shape. There's no need to water it.
Oh.
Yeah.
That seems to, oh, there we
Oh,
go.
yeah. Might be,
We just went to sleep, but we're still connected to.
right. So that's what it's for. I mean, if there's certain instances that I need to look at on a case-by-case basis, I will do that. But this is to increase the restrictions to prevent or prohibit the use of lawn sprinklers for healthy green lawns.
Mm-hmm. How does this affect things like people filling their pools and things like that?
I don't get into pools. This is more, like I said, if we drive by and there's a lawn that's green and lush, we send a letter. We're trying to educate them. They may not know that there is a ban. They may not know what the town bylaw is. So we try to educate them with a letter. We try to and that usually works. Some people that do continue to use, we'll send a second notice and then go from there. But I haven't had to really get too far in. I think it's more of just an educating of where we are with current water conditions in the river and what level of ban we are at that time. So
If you say one step, go from, but is there a half a step?
So
Some people spend a lot of money and a big investment in there. They're important, their landscape important to them, so we're just gonna tell them, shut it completely off.
yeah, I mean,
What does that mean? I mean, it's a tough thing to tell somebody who's invested a lot in there.
it is. but it's something that we have a permit that we have to abide by the conservation bylaw that we have. What we run off the river, the triggers at the Willow Dam, gets below a certain threshold for multiple days, and that's where this comes from. We have a water withdrawal registration that every community pretty much has. We also have a permit. Our permit guidelines are more restrictive and supersede the registration guidelines. So we have to abide by the permit that we currently have. Like I said, case by case, some people, they have a nice lawn, they're establishing a new piece of lawn, they have maybe different zones. I ask them to maybe try to use those zones and not the other zones. I try to get them to understand how much water they're using and if there's certain periods of time that they could water. So I try to work with them, and I try not to get too involved with it, but educate them that maybe there's alternatives that they can think about. So
I guess what my question though is, there's a lot riding on the assumption that the reason that we're wasting water is lawns. And that's I think what I'm trying, and maybe it's because it's a 1-for-1 with the conservation bylaw, but I'm like, that doesn't actually make sense to me, that the biggest place we're wasting water is lawns.
So a lot of it, the seasonal ban, the reason it's 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. is because of evaporation.
Right.
Right. So they're trying to force people to if you're going to water lawn, do it at night. Makes sense. That's what I do. Water at dusk or dawn. When we also have issues with our water plant, as we're well aware of, producing a lot of water for maybe not the best use of water. So we only have a certain amount of water. Our wells are old. We have run times. This time of year, our plant sometimes doesn't shut down for 3-4 days, sometimes more. So that's taxing our wells. That my job is to try to keep the health of the sources and keep the health of the water plant, the processes, the equipment. And this, to me, is just the next step in the ask of trying to conserve where you can, and where it's maybe more of a luxury than a necessity. Maybe that's how I look at it. Obviously, there are people that are trying to establish new lawns, and there's companies, there's landscapers, things like that they pay a lot of money for. I'm willing to work with them, but if you have a lush green lawn and it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon and it's 95 degrees out, and there's sprinklers going, that to me that kind of defeats the purpose. And maybe it's not the best time to do that, and maybe not the best use of water, since it is a precious commodity in town.
No, I understand. I mean, it's a tough situation, right? I'm just trying to think about, because if we did a 1-month water ban right now, right? And it's full watering of lawns, 100%, right? You're saying is what you're recommending, right? Right
Yeah,
now,
so it's not, no, I mean, you can water gardens if you have flowers.
But no lawns.
Lawns, that's that's the next level
To be
of
clear, it's suggesting 100% ban on watering established lawns, right?
automatic sprinkler.
He's talking sprinklers and irrigation system.
For how long?
Until we have better health in the river. So
We gotta have a duration here, so.
It's a DEP mandated thing. They actually.
And I want to get the why behind it. We're required to do it, or it's a choice, or it's a best practice, or, I just want, I'm gonna get asked these questions, too, right?
Yeah,
So-
it's not really a choice.
Yeah.
If we don't do it,
Okay.
We risk getting fined by the DEP.
Okay, so that's, it's good to know that stuff, right?
Yeah,
So,
and
What about, can you talk about wells, because people think they have their own wells and they can water there. But it's still
we-
part of the same aquifer?
it is, right behind you is what we currently have on the books. That's from the bylaw. It says it does include private wells as well. It's the same aquifer, same principles. Yeah, it's one of those, it's conservation. In Hamilton especially, we have limited water sources, very, very susceptible to drought. And our infrastructure is fairly old and not very robust. So it's one of those, if we can, and we run into this every year.
Right.
And chances are we have a seasonal ban every year, and most years we go to the next level. And then I think 2 years ago, we went to actually another level and banning non-essential water. So you're allowed to use a hose on your garden, but other than that, there's really not a lot of other watering going on, so.
And how in real time will you get feedback that we're actually accomplishing something?
So I get to see, the biggest test would be what we're producing at the plant. If we can get reduction in our gallons per day, that's huge. If we can get our reservoirs up at Browns Hill to fill up and stay at a certain level, we get plant shutdowns, so we get run times that are lower or sometimes off. The health of the plant, the health of the wells to now not produce for maybe 6-7 hours sometimes. So that's how I see it. Right now, we're running 24/7. Limited water that we've had, the limited rain. It's not a great scenario to be in. So just trying to be proactive, trying to look at it, and so prevent failure. So.
I think you're asking all good questions. I mean, because I get asked about it as well, and because we're kind of going from the seasonal. So we shouldn't have the 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 95-degree day system on, but we're going straight to nothing, right? There's not like an odd day or twice a week, no middle step, I think is where you were kind of going.
Right.
That is a first step, and then a second step would be.
I mean, we can look at what we currently have in the bylaw. The state's been big in the drought planning recently as well. But we're limited on what we currently have in the bylaw as well as the permit regs that we have. So we can definitely look at, maybe there are different levels that we can hit, or maybe revisit what the state has and maybe mirror that a little bit.
I mean, the double-edged sword, we're at range, you're not watering the lawn, right? So it's
Right, well,
But you'd be surprised at how many people actually, I go around, and it's because they're on automatic sprinklers, so they don't adjust to the,
Yeah.
I mean, some of them have the
Yeah, I've seen it.
the heads, the irrigation heads that are moisture controlled, but some aren't, so.
But I see here, people can still do hand watering.
Mhm.
Okay.
It's not to prevent any type of agricultural, livestock, that is all still acceptable use. Gardening, vegetables, that's completely,
I have to tell you, I was watering my tomatoes and I was doing it under cover of darkness. I was so terrified. I was going to get in trouble.
yeah, no. And like I said, I'm just asking for, it's a hard, I get it, it's a hard concept, it's something that it's people's private property, just asking for cooperation, participation for the common good.
No, and we can take this up another time. Like, I think my challenge is more like, if the goal is that we have to find a way to meaningfully reduce water, like, I think we're all a little bit scarred from last year after we did all this water stuff, and then there was a water abatement for 340,000 gallons of water that had leaked, 30 swimming pools worth of water that leaked over off Rock Maple, and it's like, we were all watering our plants under cover of darkness, and there were 30 Olympic swimming pools worth of water that were leaking out of a pipe. And similarly, like, I walk by water birthday parties and slip and slides and all stuff, which is, people should be able to do that.
Yep.
But it feels like a Band-Aid for a bullet wound when we say, like, it's the lawns. I'm just not convinced that in our town, like, Myopia is still watering their lawns, no problem, they're exempt.
They have their own permit.
Yeah, they're on their own, and so it's like, there's a bigger question here, like, happy to do this, to do our part, but like, this feels like, like, it just feels insufficient if the actual issue is that we're in a water crisis.
You're right, we're targeting people who.
Yeah, meanwhile,
very
like,
small
I have,
percentage, right?
yeah, like, but meanwhile, I have good friends who have, freshwater pools that it's evaporating and they're refilling them once a week. And it's like, well, that's really difficult that have dead grass and dead hydrangeas, but we're filling up pools all the time. So like, I think there is a bigger question here of like, what is the goal and what are the means to get there? But I realize that that's not the question here,
sure.
but it's difficult to say, this is what's gonna turn us around.
What have we seen in the past? Like last year we did it, correct? Did we see?
I don't think we got to last year, I think it was just seasonal. Last year, I think it was 2 years ago.
We never got to the.
2 years ago, and we went actually kind of, if you want to think of it, level 3 last year, 2 years
We're
ago.
at 1 or 2 right now,
We're at 1 right now. One is the seasonal.
and we're asking to go to 2.
Correct.
Okay,
So
That's
this would be the half step.
yeah.
right.
3 is when the colors get darker.
Yeah, and I think it's also, I mean, speaking about, you know, the pools and things like, I think it's not easy to calculate or think about how much water is actually being used. Pool's easy, I mean, it's volume, right? But your lawn sprinklers, depending on gallons per minute, what the run time is, things like that, that does add up, and you can see it. I mean, I can see it in water bills coming into the town. I know who's watering. I know because of the size of the bills and the use that we're getting, compared to the normal.
Scared.
Well, no, compared to the normal use, right? So you have an idea that, okay, they're using water besides domestic
Yep.
use. So
Or really long showers.
So, Joe,
Could
I
be.
guess it'd be.
Teenagers.
The message is, it's right, it's not that we're considering we have to do it. We're in a position right now, we have to do something, or else we will get fined.
Yeah, we have to do something, DP's gonna.
Right, so this is the first step of trying to get it right-sized.
Right.
So it makes sense to say this is the first step, but I'd rather give it like a duration and then have them come back and see it actually making a meaningful difference.
Right, so can I ask, I mean, typically, I wait for you as water commissioners to make that call. Does it make sense to work with the town manager and not wait a few weeks? That's the biggest thing for me, is if I could get 3 days of a drought trigger in the river, and now I've got to wait another week and a half before I can even talk to you. So
I'm saying we would, we could approve the ban tonight, but with a date that you come back to us and say it's working, let's renew it,
Why don't-
rather than just leave it,
But-
rather than just leave it open.
Can we get a report on the August 19th meeting?
yeah, I mean, and it will be evident if we get moisture too.
That's right.
So, I mean, I get drought, I get the levels on my phone and emails. As soon as it goes below the threshold, every day I get an update. So I know kind of where the river is, obviously.
How much rain we had in the last month, you probably know that too?
I'd have to look, but I know, I mean, I use the 52, like a discharge level, like a 52.5 cubic feet per second. And right now, I think it's at 16. It's been down for a while. And, you know, like I said, you can go on the Mass DEP website, and we're technically not in a drought condition, but that's based on our registration. In our permit, we have tighter
I'm
requirements.
so curious that like people insist they never know anything, but suddenly the whole town's gonna know about the water ban. Like, how many, yeah, I mean, I does feel a little bit of lip service too, because, you know.
Somebody asked, raising a hand.
Oh,
Michael.
Michael Madden, I see you have a comment. Would you like to come off mute?
Hi, and thank you for allowing me to ask the question. I just want to go back to an earlier comment, I think it was you that brought up. Just curious, why does Myopia Hunt Club have an exemption on this?
I believe they're exempt, they have their own withdrawal permit from the state.
They have their own well that was granted to them by DP 100 years ago or whatever, and they have their own, therefore they have their own withdrawal registration and withdrawal permit, and so they have their own rules.
Yeah, I believe a lot of golf courses have their own permit and things for drawing water.
And can we revisit this and update that?
Update what, so what we're asking tonight is to comply with our registration, our permit rather, with DEP. We could update the local bylaw, but if DEP still tells us through the permit that they need us to make an adjustment here, then we're still gonna have to try to comply with that. So.
Yes, the guess I'm asking is, can we revisit that as to why Myopia and other people are exempt from it, but
We have nothing to do with
Myopia.
We have nothing to do with Myopia's permit. That's between Myopia and the state. I mean, we could write a letter to the state saying we don't think it's fair, but.
Well, I guess then that's what I'm asking then.
I mean, certainly we could write, I mean, I think anything that takes a large draw from our water that's in our town is a concern of ours, and I think there is, certainly we could in some way investigate that, but as far as whether we control their permit or have any say or governance over the permit, the answer is no. That's between them and the state, and we would have to be.
Oh, absolutely, yes, I
Yeah.
totally understand that, yes. I guess I'm asking then if we could write a letter to the state.
I mean, if you, Michael, would like to take that on as a citizen's agenda, certainly, I think we'd want to understand impact, usage, there'd have to be some sort of data draw on where we would get that data and how we would do it. I think, I'm certainly open to somebody taking that on. I don't want to speak for the board, but I think with everything else on our plate, I don't know that there's going to be.
I will say that I believe the Ipswich River Watershed has taken this message to the state multiple times in the past.
Yep.
So,
And if they have their
we
own
can
withdrawal,
reiterate
I
it,
mean,
but it-
Yeah, I mean, if you just think about all of the country clubs and private clubs that are pulling from the Ipswich watershed, I mean, that in and of itself is a bigger conversation. Because, there's a lot of green space, there's a lot of golf courses, and they're all being watered to keep them lush and green all year round.
and the difference is we have infrastructure that we need to keep healthy to provide water for the town. They're just watering a golf course. They're pulling water out of a well watering. I have a process to treat the water and then to deliver the water. So I need to have the water to treat. And that's where a lot of this is coming from. Once the river starts getting lower, we start seeing evidence of the plant working a little harder. So we don't have a plant that can work hard. We've known that. So I'm just trying to prevent a couple different things going on here. So
Maybe we need some more rain barrels.
Rain barrels.
Go on, get on there.
Next year. All right, in the interest of moving us along, because our meatiest topic is still to come, I would love for us to, did we already make, no, would somebody like to make a
Make a
motion?
motion to make a, what do we call it, stage two?
Just a-
Enhanced water,
Restrictions.
Stage two for 30 days. To make a motion to have a water ban on all lawn watering for 30 days until we evaluate whether it's making a difference, and if not, we'll have to enact other programs. Reevaluate, so a 30-day.
Did you get that?
Yep.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Rosie. Any further comment?
No, it's a good questions, though.
It's good
I know,
discussion.
I realize we're in a tough spot, but we just wanna
Right.
take baby steps to figure out how we can solve it.
I'm the poster child. My lawn looks like shit.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I do not have irrigation.
You're welcome.
Yes.
I look like I make drugs for a living in my house. All right, all in favor? Aye. There you go.
Thank you, Tim.
We always give you such a razzle-dazzle time.
Doesn't Tim have more?
Yes, but first, we do have an item to review the report and recommendations of the Central Transportation Planning Services. For reasons, multiple, well, yeah, we're gonna ask that maybe somebody table this topic.
So the Tim and myself, and some folks from Ipswich and some residents from Goodhue were on a call with the Central Transportation Planning Service. They have kind of completed their work. They gave us a presentation. That presentation is in your packets. They gave us a draft report, but they have not yet finalized that report. They don't want us to release the report publicly. So for that reason, I'd ask if we could table this to the August 5th meeting. I've exchanged emails this afternoon with the neighbors, and they were okay with that. They're a little frustrated that CTPS didn't finish, but they're understanding, and they'd rather we just take it up when we can actually have you all take a vote on something.
Didn't we technically release it publicly since it's in our agenda?
It says draft all over.
Oh, okay, great.
I move that we table the recommendation from the Central Transportation Planning Board regarding Goodhue and Highland Street traffic.
According to this board, you don't even have to make a motion. You can just say the word out loud.
Table.
It's like Bloody Mary. Yep, there you go.
So Joe, if I have questions, that was a good report, I had questions on it though, should I just send them to you? And you
Sure,
can
send
ask?
them to me, and we can try to get them answered in
I was gonna ask
for
them-
the August 5th
I was
meeting.
gonna ask them tonight, but I
Yeah.
will email them to you.
If you can send them to me, we'll try to have answers for them by the meeting on the 5th. So.
I have a couple of things about this as well. I can tell you, after reading this lengthy report, all you have to do is drive down that intersection of Goodhue going on to Highland, and you know what the solution is.
And they came to it. Amazingly, it just supported what we all thought was the right thing to do anyway, which is great.
But there's another issue, and.
It's tabled.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
All right.
No, we can have this discussion. I want to hear what you have to say.
No, we
too.
already tabled it. We already tabled it. We're having the discussion later, everyone. Because we want to make sure that the residents are here, and we already, I think they agreed that we weren't going to talk about it and didn't come, so I don't want to be unfair to them. Oh, you came.
Oh, hi.
I'm so sorry.
Sorry, I thought I had everybody on the email list when I was Mike and the Chamberlains, and I thought everybody was on that list. I'm sorry.
I did get the memo from you. I responded to you. I'm Nancy Baker, and
Come up to the,
I wasn't sure that, well, now I'm exhausted. After sitting here so long.
well,
So sorry.
I guess I'll hold my comments till then.
But you are welcome to, since you came out.
yeah, you're welcome to come up if you want to just make some public comment. We can write it down here so that we have it for the next conversation. Did you read the,
Well,
did,
I looked at the draft report.
will you come up to the podium just so that folks can hear you and just state your name and address?
Yeah, it's past my bedtime.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. My name is Nancy Baker. I'm on Goodhue Street, and I appreciate the time to talk to you. We came in the winter. I remember meeting a number of the selectmen then, and we had hoped by February that we would have seen the report. So it's been a long haul, and some of my comments relate to that. There are basically 3 problems there, and they looked at 2 of them. They looked at the traffic counts, and they looked at the speeding. But I think there's a 3rd problem that neither the traffic count can pick up nor the speeding can pick up. And I do want to point out that speeding was pretty extensive before I get into it. 66% of the traffic was speeding in the northbound direction, and 58% was speeding in the southbound direction. So we can bear that out as we struggle. Every time I go out to pick up my mail, my husband looks at me and says, "Be careful." And that's just to cross the street. But the 3rd problem, I think, is something that hasn't picked up, and that's the conflicts. And we've got the 2-way traffic. We've got a number of truck traffics that use that as a cut-through. And they're not small traffic. They're 18-wheelers. And when you get a vehicle and a truck on that road, it's very narrow. It's not too windy, so that's why people feel comfortable speeding. But it's narrow enough that people will actually pull into our driveway to try and pass. And that's not the only conflict. We see a lot of bicycle traffic coming through there, and we have horseback, and a lot of horse trailers, because they use the schooling fields around the corner on Walding Field, and there's also a barn there. So we get a lot of that kind of traffic. And I think the problem that they don't pick up with the conflict is really important. And that's why I would hope that you would consider, again, the one-way trip, because I feel that that's the one solution that wasn't looked at. It's not, it would be cost-effective, wouldn't take much. You just need a sign, good signage there, and it could be done fairly quickly. We wouldn't be waiting another year for a long-term solution that might include the striping, which is very nice, looks really pretty in the plans, but you know as well as I do that that striping needs to be repainted. It's going to be costly. We're going to have to revisit this maybe 5 to 10 years from now. So I'm looking for a cost-effective solution for the town that can be done quickly. I think one way is worth reconsideration. And in fact, they excluded it based on 2 things, and that was based on the speed and the count. And they said that based on those 2 factors alone, they threw it out.
Yeah.
And I did ask in my comment to Mr. Demelowitz this afternoon whether the longer term, the final report had addressed it in any more detail than that. And the answer back I got, which I appreciate, was no, it really didn't have that information. So that's why I came out tonight. I felt that there wasn't anything new to be learned. So thank you.
Absolutely, thank you, and I apologize.
So Joe, we can put this early in the agenda next time?
Yeah, we'll put it at the top of the next agenda so that you don't have to sit through so much.
That's okay. Thanks so much.
I'm so sorry.
So Nancy, I will just add that I frequent that area. My horse is over at, is over at Walding Field, and I too noticed ginormous trucks flying down that 18-foot wide road. There are no sidewalks. There are bikers, horseback riders, walkers, and yeah, it's very treacherous. So I will speak for myself, but certainly we'll do everything we can to support reasonable limitations on that road. So,
Well, I was really impressed with the effort that was made in the first meeting. That I think it was it Bill Olson? Were you the one that had driven it and done the video of the street and put together?
No, I did not, but I drive it every day, so.
Yeah,
Yes,
I was really impressed with the effort that was put in for that early meeting. So thank you very much for.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Joe, you drove the street, if I remember.
Yeah, you do.
I drive it every day, so.
10 and 2.
Totally.
Yeah, I also have to imagine, well, I'll text you, I'll email you about it later. Okay, next we have a report from the illustrious Tim Olson regarding the town hall project and the recent opening of construction bids. All good news, I've heard.
It's good news. So the good news is we got 4 bids.
Woo! Everybody take a moment to be excited about that, because what comes next?
That's not easy these days. The issue that we have is that they're quite a bit higher than what we thought. So it gets us back to, in 2020, we bid the project out, and it was about $5.5 million, I think 5.7, 5.8 was the low bid, the accepted low bid. This time, the low bid is 7.4 million. So looking at the math, it's about a 30% increase, which is right around what we've seen in the construction.
Actually, that's not even actually accurate, right? Because it's an increase over a reduced scope.
Right, right. So what our intentions were, that's what I was gonna get at. What our intentions was to reduce some of the project by including this energy management part of the project, to reduce the cost and to try to get it around the same price. That was the idea. Knowing that market was up, we thought taking out some of the work, we would get around the same price for the project. That didn't happen. Sub bids that we received, there's about 15, 16 sub bids on this project. They were quite a bit higher this time. HVAC, the elevator, actually, I think even waterproofing was high compared to what we've seen in 2020. So obviously, when you get the GC bids coming in, they carry a number. They're GC work, but they're also carrying the costs on top of the sub bids because they manage them. So it kind of exponentially grew from there, and we're into the, like I said, the low bid of 7.4 4 years later. And with a somewhat of a reduced scope, that was the intention.
What was the next highest bid?
Next highest was 9.4.
So we had 4 bids and they,
7.4, 9.4, 9.7, and 10.1.
and how many of them were the same bidders from last
I
time?
believe 2 or 3 were the same. So the low bid was a bidder last time.
Was a bidder?
Was a bidder, yep.
Were they low last time?
No.
They were the only ones that had to be honest about the differential in the scope.
Right.
So, the crux of this is that at current, with the money that we have available for the project and what the bid is, plus having the proper amount of contingency, we need about $2 million. Wendy can come up. You got a memo late today. We were crunching numbers trying to figure it out. Wendy can come up and expound upon that or speak to the memo that was on your desks in front of you tonight and in your email earlier. So Wendy's memo kind of lays out what some of our options are, but before she goes through the numbers, I'll just say it will require you to have a special town meeting and ask town meeting. We do think that we can do it without a vote of a ballot question vote and an override, but we can't do it without a vote at town meeting. So we'd need to have a special town meeting sometime this fall. In order for this project to continue, we need to have a special town meeting sometime this fall, as quickly as a turnaround as possible. And there'll be a couple different ways that we could put it before town meeting. That'll be up to the board and FinCom and Capcom and CPC and everybody else that wants to weigh in. But
Just a quick question before we get into that. You mentioned sub costs, the elevator materials, were they up 30% too, or is that?
So I mean, it's pretty much across the board. The sub, I don't know exactly how much the sub bid was, like the breakdown in that price. But I mean, an elevator is pretty much the material cost.
Right.
And that was up, that was double from what we had last time, so. Yeah.
And was there, you mentioned reduced cost, is there an effort to maybe to close that 2 million gap or look at scope?
So we have stripped that project down.
Yeah.
My concern is that we're gonna do we're not gonna get the project we really need.
Right.
We're battling that at some other buildings in town, that continue to be headaches, and costly, and much more cost than when it was constructed. So it's something that we looked at from 2020, we reduced it, but it seems like we reduced the project, but now it's as expensive or more expensive, for not as much project.
Right.
So if we keep kicking the can down the road, I mean, that's the way every project is. You know, you defer it, more problems with the building. As we defer, there's more wood rot on the outside. There's more issues with an aging building, and it's not that we don't need to do the project. It's not that it'd be great if we can do it. It's a necessity. It's something we need to have put back together, and structurally, there's some structural issues. There's ADA issues. There's fire suppression issues. I mean, the building is a wood structure. It's a balloon construction. It's not a great environment for 21st century town government, so.
All right.
I mean, I think
And if we I'm sorry, just to respond, Bill, too, if the board asks us to go back and try and reshape the project again, that's more time with the consultants to figure out what to pare out, how to bring it down, rebid it. And there's no guarantee that we're gonna get a bid that's still gonna get in under our 6.5. We're just gonna take, another 3 to 6 months to get the project reworked again.
Yeah, no, it's just not a small number, right?
Right.
I didn't know if there was a phased approach or a scope or anything, but it sounds like, it's cost of waiting right now.
Yeah, and pretty much if you break the project down into the elements of the project, they all kind of work with each other. They're all we should do it all at the same time, because if we phase it, then we're almost kind of stepping on each other, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. It makes sense to do all at one time with the phases and the items that we have in the project. And like I said, if we don't do some things, they're going to continue to grow into more of an issue and larger projects. So.
Got it.
I mean, I think this is,
So these are our options, huh?
yeah, I mean, I think this also is a sort of representative of the larger issue we're having with, as Tim said, other buildings in town. I think we've started having conversations about the cost of the schools, and are those estimates right? Like, not only are they, when people feel like the estimations are inflated, I think what we're seeing here is they're not inflated. Like, these construction costs are very, 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 very high.
Yeah.
And this is just such a small, it's not that, you're not gonna walk into like a revitalized town hall when this is over. There'll be many things you don't notice at all change.
No, yeah, it's the bones, right?
Yeah. So we need $2 million. You are going to give it to us. You just have it in your car, in a suitcase.
It's in Joe's pocket.
Where's that
A
check?
heart. A heart.
Yeah, where's that check? No.
Can we put the pavilion on it?
So we kind of brainstormed to kind of see, what kind of funds we have available right now. So currently, certified available free cash, we have about 500,000. We would not get a recertification until the end of September to know if we would have any more. So it's not current information that we even can consider. We did talk about the potential to reduce the free cash reserve from the 5% to 3% on a temporary basis, because DLS guidance speaks to best practice between 3 and 5, so that would seem acceptable. However, we'd be backpedaling to kind of try to fill that again. That would create a $1.2 million available certified free cash in the moment. Then we have ARPA funds, unobligated funds of $346,000, which need to be obligated by December 31st this year. So we could utilize those funds. We could also take $350,000 of ARPA funding, $250 of which is sidewalk repairs and $100 for Patton Park improvements, and reallocate that to this project, creating another $696,000. Or then we could take the option of bonding. So we looked at two different bonds, 1.5 million and 2 million, to see how it would affect our operating costs. So 1.5 million would be approximately $135,000 a year of operating expenses. And of course, that's based on 4%, which is not set in stone, so there could be some wiggle room there. And $2 million bond would be about $180,000 of operating cost, maybe a little bit too much. So based on the facts that we have, and we also looked at the capital the reserve, and we're already behind there, so we can't go into that. So based on the current facts that we have, I don't personally think that's a good idea to deplete our free cash all the way, because there's gonna be other projects that we're gonna need. So I think it would be in the best interest to go for the $1.5 million bond, and then utilize the unobligated ARPA funds of $346,000, and then potentially reduce the ARPA sidewalk repairs to $100,000, reduce by $100,000, so that Tim still has money to do his projects, but maybe those get phased out.
So what's the total, in that scenario, what's the total ARPA?
The total ARPA would be $446,000, $446,540. That would be the total ARPA usage.
$1.5 million bond, what you get, you
Right.
1.996.
And then,
7 or 10-year bond?
This would be a 20-year bond.
Dumbledore, have you looked at this?
No.
Okay.
Right.
So what's the yearly?
So it'd be
1.5 million?
1.5 million would be $135,000 a year at 4% interest rate, which is not set in stone, and it would decrease by approximately $3,000 a year. So it would continuously decrease for 20 years.
Can you talk a little bit about decreasing the free cash from 5 to 3% on a temporary basis? What do you mean by that?
So currently, the financial policy says that we need to keep 5% of the prior year's total operating budget in free cash.
Well, that's recommended, right? It's not-
No, that's
your
the
financial
policy that's
policy.
current.
That's your
That's our
policy.
current policy, yes.
Okay. But DLS guidelines say between 3 and 5.
Between 3 and 5,
But our
right.
policy is 5%.
That's correct.
Okay, so what do you mean by temporarily?
So the board would have to take a vote to change the policy, to say that you want to bring it to 3% on a temporary basis, and we could determine what that temporary basis is. You could do a timeline of a year, 3 years, in order to get it back to the 5% reserve that we want it to be at.
All right, and I just remember that it hasn't been a whole lot of time since we've had this free cash at this 5% level, and while it's a great thing, we did without the 5% for a long time, so
I'm
I'm
not
just
sure
sort
when
of
it was adopted.
thinking, I'm just thinking that it hasn't been in place for like a really long time.
I think it
was
was probably in and
2018?
around 2015 or 16,
Yeah.
Sean, right?
Yeah.
And Rosie, you're absolutely right. I mean, if the board want to discuss that and
Yeah.
get input from FinCom, I would say, though, one of the reasons to keep it at 5% and have that financial policy the way it is, it really helps us with our bond rating. So having the 5% is a very good thing, is a very good thing, even though DLS allows it, recommends best practice between 3 and 5. Being at the upper end of that is actually good for us. It makes it less expensive for us to borrow money.
You pay for it in the long run.
And right now, what's in our our certified free cash is at that 5% threshold,
We have 500,000 remaining at the 5%, yes.
after the 5%. Okay,
Yes, we do.
so you could take like 100,000 from it.
We could take the 5,
Well, I just,
yeah. But the 5%'s already in there. The
Yeah.
500 is left over from the 5% reserve.
Okay.
Available
Yeah.
above the
there's,
5%.
that's
Right.
what's left.
That's what's left.
Got it.
Correct.
So,
That would need a separate town meeting vote as well.
Yes.
So part of the recommendation from Wendy, and I kind of concur, is that we're trying to make it as seamless as possible. Get what we can in one vote if we can,
but we could do 450 ARPA, 500,000 free cash, and bond $1 million.
We could.
Okay.
We could consider many options.
I mean, I shouldn't be the one.
So a bond requires a ballot vote?
No, bond requires a passage of town meeting of 2/3. Taking free cash only requires a 50% plus one.
Yeah, you have to do that.
Do we know what a
Bond
million would
requires
cost
2/3.
on a bond?
It's a 2/3 vote. It's a 2/3 vote required, John, for the,
So it's not a debt exclusion.
it's not, we're not recommending a debt exclusion. We
No.
don't, you know, so, just so you can understand, the proposal here would be to get permission from a special town meeting to bond. That wouldn't hit us until FY '26. We haven't even started that budget process yet. We would just have to assume that debt service payment in our FY '26 budget.
Of 130.
Of 100
And then what's our, with our sustainable building, you're gonna save on utility costs?
Well, for the first 20 years, the sustainable building, the utility cost is gonna pay off the money that we're borrowing to do the sustainable building
Okay.
parts. So,
Part of that
I mean,
part.
that's money spoken for
Okay.
if the project goes forward.
If we get the bond to $1 million, per Caroline's kind of suggestion, would that bring us below 100,000 a year?
I mean, I'm thinking right around 100,000 if I'm looking at, you know, the math of the 2 million, but I can find out from Hilltop.
I mean, it went down.
Yeah,
from
I can
2 to
find
1,
out.
it was rough.
Right,
It'd be 90 something. yeah.
okay.
So Tim, I have a question for you. I know that there are some projects slated for the ARPA money. Could you, are those things that really need to be done, or could, in some perfect world, the ARPA money go to the town hall project?
I mean, projects need to get done. I would say if you're gonna ask me to prioritize a project, I would put it to the town hall.
That's probably my question, yeah.
There's other avenues of funding for road projects. There's Chapter 90, there's RAP money that we get sometimes, just winter recovery money.
What's the total ARPA available, like, left?
It's 600.
696?
696, so that's a lot of pennies.
Technically, you've already,
That's
already
taking, that's
appropriated.
reappropriating.
That's what I'm saying, like, the stuff that we looked at 2 meetings ago,
Yeah.
the total ARPA in that was what? 350, and then you're saying there's also an additional 350 left from that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, you said
Right.
like 696.
So 696 is the total ARPA if we took all of what's left
And don't do anything else with it.
and don't do any of the patent or any of the sidewalks or any of that.
But you said there would be other sources for.
Yeah, well, in the town meeting, there was the overlay, I believe, right? We had 250,000 for sidewalks. We have Chapter 90. We have some older appropriations, not much, but we can still get some road work done, even without this particular.
And you anticipate that the Chapter 90 money will remain roughly the same or increase?
I haven't heard otherwise. I don't know if you've heard. I haven't heard that there's any issues with that.
Actually,
so.
if anything, it'll go up.
Yeah.
Because of the millionaire's tax.
Yeah.
Transportation and education are the two things that can be
Yeah.
funded.
We've been getting more.
We've been getting
Yeah,
more.
so
Joe,
that,
what do you, I unfortunately have to leave it a little bit, but what's the goal for tonight? Are we gonna vote anything tonight, or gonna make a recommendation, or
I
what's
feel
the
like
goal
this
for
needs to go to
tonight?
FinCom before we,
Right, we're just gonna have a
Yeah,
we have lots of
if you're gonna go
questions.
to town meeting with anything, you're gonna need to re-explain
Yes.
yeah,
the whole project.
yeah,
And did we look at
Everything.
right.
Like, for instance, what if you took the elevator out? What does that do to the whole operation?
Can't.
Well,
You can't.
the biggest part of doing the
Right.
project
Yeah.
is to do
Yeah.
the accessibility.
No, I was thinking the same thing, though. Like, could you put everything accessible to the public on the first
If you
floor?
take the elevator out, that takes the second floor off the map. Is that?
If you take the elevator out, then we could not put everybody on the first floor, because then the meeting room would have to stay on the first floor.
I just also, I don't know that scope should be on the table for the discussion at this point. Like, it's already such a skeletal scope based on what we needed, like.
What I'm saying is, we owe it, we're gonna call everyone in for a vote. You really need to explain.
Yeah, but I think the conversation that we need to explain is, prices are, we're in la-la land about this. And we get this conversation all the time that people are saying, that's not what they are, that it's like, it's even worse than what we thought they were. And so I think in some ways, I wanna be careful saying, we're being like greedy with scope, because it's a smaller scope than what we thought it was, and it's twice as expensive as we thought it was gonna be.
It's easy to explain the cost increases, because we're seeing it at the state level. for
Everywhere.
all schools.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The state
yeah,
has published all that cost stuff. 40% increase in a lot of the new bids for the schools. So I absolutely agree with you. My point is, if you're gonna go back and ask for another $1 million, you need to explain what the heck we're up to.
But I think that the explanation is.
Speaker.
Um,
Oh, one second. I see that, Michael, your hand has been raised. Did you have a comment to share?
Yes, thank you, Carolyn. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak. I guess two things I'm thinking of is one is the scope, and I know you just talked about scope, but I'm curious to know why on the lower end, I think it's 7.4, and the higher end was 10.4, something like that. That's a difference of approximately 40%. And why is that? Is that because there's a question on the scope? Like, why is there such a 40% difference in the cost estimate there? And then the second part of the question that I wanted to talk about was, who were the people that we sent this, or I'm guessing it's an RFP out to, and could we broaden the area that we send the RFP out to include maybe companies in New Hampshire, southern Maine, southern Vermont? So,
So I can answer both those questions. Well, the second question is easier. We solicited invitation for bids through Project Dog, which is an online bidding. That hits all of New England. I believe some of our bidders were from Greater New England, maybe even further than that. So it's not a Town of Hamilton newspaper that we put this in. It's a well distributed online planning room. We probably had, I believe, interested GCs, maybe 25, and close to 60 sub-bidders. So it was very, I thought we were going to get more bids than 4, actually. It seemed like it was a very enticing project. I don't know why the bids were 7.4 to 10.1. It's quite a bit of a range. According to our low bidder, I did question his bid, like I do every bid. They took some time to look at their number, and they're very comfortable with their number. So they are the company that did ask a lot of questions. We had, I believe, 5 addenda put out for this project for a variety of questions. Everybody seemed to be, to understand the plans, very clear with the scope. And I guess your guess is as good as mine as where the other $4 million is. It depends on maybe how busy contractors are. Or, I don't know. But the 7.4 number, which I'm more concerned with, is a good number according to the low bidder.
And did you say, Tim, that this was the bidder from the original project?
Yeah, so they bid the original project. They were one of, I think we got 6 in the original. They were, I think, 3rd from the original project.
Okay.
Yep.
Right.
I would say it's fairly common. I mean, I don't know who here's priced a house project recently, but we did it, and there were bids that were 200,000, and there were bids that were 800,000.
Yeah.
And it's just what they want and what they think they can get in the market.
When I've talked to bidders on other projects in the past about different, why is yours so much higher, why is yours so much lower? What Tim said is often what they tell me off the record is that really just depends on how much business I have. Like, I've got this work lined up, but if you'll throw a bunch of money at me, I'll do it. Yeah. But if not, I'm fine. So they figure their cost based on how much they need it. And right now, they're telling us they don't need it.
Yeah. That's why I was asking about materials versus labor, because it's more, you can play with labor a little more than you can materials.
Yep. So I mean, I like I said, the low bidder, I gave them time to look at their number. They did that, and they are very comfortable with the number that they bid. Even they always like to look at what the other bidders were, and they looked a little harder because they were $2 million off the next bid. So they wanted to make sure their number, they didn't miss something. They were very comfortable with it.
Okay. So in the interest of everyone's bedtime, I know that did you have a comment?
I just had a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just because I'm just trying to figure this out, Deb Safford. So if I understood, $6.5 million was approved at town meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened from that 6.5 to where we are now? If someone could just explain that backstory, please.
Yeah, we bid it originally in 2020, and it was around 5.7 million. When we went back in 2020, we were assuming a percentage of inflation on top of that, and we're thinking it would be about 6.5 million. We're going to reduce the scope plus inflation. 6.5 was what we thought we would need. When we went out to bid it 4 years later at a reduced scope, it came back between 7.4 and 10.1.
So the 6.5 that was approved in town meeting was not based on an actual quote, but on an estimate of an increase from a 2020.
Yes.
And so that's why we're here, right? Because we
Well,
didn't have
reduced scope and assumption
and
of cost.
inflation, yeah.
So,
So that's probably going to be something that is going to be good to understand and clarify, right? As to why, if we have to actually go back to another town meeting, and I suppose not asking the town until we get a bid that can be locked in,
well, we have the bids now.
Yeah,
They're 7-4.
but after the meeting.
So the first time we did it, we did the bidding first and then had to do the town meeting. That is not the way.
That's not the way they do it?
No.
Almost never. It was very odd to me that we were doing it that way. Partly because you can't, then town meeting has to act really quickly because the bidders
I see.
put in their bids and they're only that good for a certain amount of time.
So, okay, so that's just the way it's done, is
Yeah,
you
yeah.
sort of do a
Generally,
ballpark,
you go out to
and then it
bid
ends up being, okay.
After you have the money to do the project. So-
Got it. Thank you for clarifying. Yeah.
Yep. And that's a good point that Joe brought up. I did talk with the contractor. I gave him time to look at his bid. Like I said, he's comfortable. He also understands where we are. And he, during our conversation, seemed to be willing to work with us on our timeframe. So,
That's good to know. Okay,
Wait,
so.
what was that? He said he would work with us on what?
on our
hold the
potential
bid for-
timeframe,
for-
if we
Hold-
needed
yeah,
the money.
hold the bid.
So,
Because you couldn't negotiate with him now, right?
No,
We would have to
no,
go back to all
no,
four
and
and say,
I
hey,
asked him
here's what
my-
we're willing to pay.
right, and I asked him what his time frame was, and he said he'd like to get in sooner than later, but he obviously was looking at maybe a late fall timeframe. So when I told him that we may have to do this,
Yeah.
if that's the decision, he seemed to understand it and be willing to work with us.
That's nice.
All right.
Okay, so can I just make one more comment
Yep.
here? If we combine the current certified available free cash of 510 and the using the ARPA funds, that gives us 1.2 million, and those are the things that Wendy feels comfortable with, not decreasing the free cash percentage. And I, as a taxpayer, knowing that things are just getting more and more expensive, it decreases our need for bonding to 800,000, and which is much more palatable than even 1.5 million or 2 million. I think we should squeeze every cent of our available cash and not bond a dime more than we need. My comment.
I understand what you're saying, and like Joe mentioned, we were trying to get a one vote, so this was the idea behind the recommendation, but I mean, we're all for whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think, in the interest of, as I said, everyone's bedtime, I think this is a good start to the conversation. I don't think there's a finance degree amongst the table
Sure there is.
here. Is it you?
We
Okay,
are.
good. Thank God.
There's one.
Uh,
There's one.
So what do you think, Bill?
So I think
I
that,
wanna,
I think that it makes sense, though, for the FinCom, I think we need to look at a proposal
Yeah.
of what the options are, the votes associated with those options, and then make an informed decision. Because I feel like any further conversation with us, unless there's questions, which of course you're welcome to ask, we're going to have more questions that will be clarified if we can look at this and say, here's the ARPA, here's the free cash, here's the bonding scenarios, here's the terms, here's what we're asking, here's how many votes we would need, and make a choice that way.
Yeah,
But
I
if-
know, exactly. I think if we lay it out, kind of what you started to do, free cash, ARPA, bonding, scenarios in the columns, and kind of lay down with the, whether it's 135 a year or 185 at 2 million, 1.5 million, 1 million, 800,000, and then just kind of we can plug and play it.
Do you have more money for us, Jay? Was that what you were about to tell me?
Well,
It's got 800,000.
yes,
Well,
but
come over and talk to us.
it's not clear that you want to do it. Let me just
Put an
say,
apartment for Joe on the top, it's community housing, right?
let me just say a couple things. First of all, the town hall is probably the most important project ever before the CPC.
Exactly.
And we were in for just under 5 million to date. Wendy and I have traded emails on this subject, and is there room for a $1.2 million grant from the CPA? Yes, but it would take all of our money. It would completely wipe out any hope of bonding anything else for quite a while. And it's because we're limited to, you can only spend bond repayments to the extent of your 2% surcharge. And right now, we're paying 448 grand between Sagamore and Town Hall, and you add 135 to that, the limit is 603. So it's right against the limit, but it would just take all our money. Now, I think that should be thrown into the analysis by the FinCom as, do you want to do that? It's certainly the hope of funding any kind of decent size grant for affordable housing going forward wouldn't happen for a while. But I think we should do it. Wendy doesn't think we should spend all our money.
Well,
Not
what
all
if
of
we
it, but
did, what if we
maybe
did
add a row for
some?
CPA.
Yes, we could consider it as part of the equation. And I just want to make a comment. This was new information that we had to bring tonight, so it wasn't like I didn't want to bring it to FinCom.
No, Wendy, this is, no, you've done great. This is, I didn't mean to
I didn't
imply
wanna-
that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want John or.
Yeah, right.
I don't want John or Capcom or the EIC and all the other boards and committees that have logged their opinion in favor of this project previously to think that we were leaving anybody out. This has only been about a week and a half that we've had the information, and we've been trying to work behind the scenes, and it was our responsibility to bring it to the select board first, but we had every intention of coming to FinCom, checking in with Capcom, checking in with EIC and the CPC, because you guys have all been part of the project. This wasn't, and there was no way we were trying to leave anybody out. The first stop had to be here, and this was only to start the conversation.
Right.
And it's
I-
just a discussion, we're
Right.
not
Yeah, yeah,
voting
not
on
voting on
anything.
I have one other question too. The last fall, when we split the project into the decarbonization project that was separate, that was estimated to be 1.5 to 2 million. Is that fully funded?
Well, I mean, we could ask Bill and Christian from ESG, they happen to be on the call, but the short answer is yes. Essentially, that project remains on track. We just need to time it with this. Yeah, it's funded differently.
I know it is, but I mean, we're not gonna, talking 6 months from now saying, whoops.
Bill has not yet given me the indication at all that
Okay.
we're out of whack in that regard, so.
And I think we're still, like I said earlier, I think if this is the decision this fall to maybe go after some more money, I think we're right on still the time frame we were thinking for construction. I don't think we're delaying that too much, so.
Is the Sagamore bond
2032.
2032. What do you think the sense of the committee is for another $1.2 million in a bond and spend all the money?
It's a tough one, Jay, because I think that we've overwhelmingly in favor for it. We all know it has to be done, and the townspeople, we've been talking about it since before I was on the board, probably 20 or 30 years we've been talking about it. But with limited funding, but we don't have any grants ahead of us that are predicted anyway, other than affordable housing trusts, and they haven't come to us with a major project other than the Harbor Light one and Habitat that just happened. So we'll have Safe Harbor a little bit on those for a year or so. And with the bond coming off, even though it's 2032 for Sagamore, that will clear up, what is that, how much is that one now? Do you know, Wendy, offhand? 135 or something like that. So this
would replace it.
That's something. We're just going to replace it, right? But it'll be less. It'll be, what, 90,000 or something like that if you get it down under $1 million.
But right now, we have roughly, as I mentioned, 900 grand spread among several categories. If the takeout a $1.2 million grant, that would take away all of the 2% surcharge, and we're getting 84 grand as a state match in November this year, and it's probably going to stay that way. So
I think the board would be in favor for it. It's whether when we take it to town meeting, if the town would be in favor for it. We've had plenty of support at town meeting before. It's just been at the ballot where we've struggled, and this wouldn't be a ballot thing.
It would be, or?
Yes.
It would not be a
It
ballot
would be a
question.
two-thirds vote.
It would be a two-thirds vote.
We are euphemistically searching the couch cushions at town hall to try to figure out a way to do this without a debt exclusion. So
Bake sale, lemonade stand.
We're trying to grab every little pot that has a little bit of money that we can add to it, so we want to avoid an override. I want to avoid an override.
I mean, right, and anything we can do to just pay it up now and not put the town into debt for yet another 20-year bond, just.
The problem is the longer you wait, the
Right, right, exactly, so.
The CPA is already our money, right?
Right, we already pay it, right.
It's like it's our money.
Right.
That's right.
Borrowing new money when we have
exactly, exactly.
I agree with you, I'm so glad I meant to ask that too, because it seems like this is just right up the alley of what those funds are supposed to be used for. Just as a citizen who would be living out there, you know,
Well,
it's like,
exactly.
that's our money, let's not put it to bed. If we have it
So,
All right, what are next steps here?
So, I will say, I think we need to get this to FinCom. We probably want to apprise the Capcom and the EIC. We've kind of given a heads up to the CPC, and maybe they'll probably want to have a meeting about this. The timing is that for a special time meeting to be called, the select board has to determine the date that they want to call it. The only real timing in the state law that's required, according to Tom McEnany, is that we have to be able to post the warrant 2 weeks before the actual date of the town meeting, because it's a special. So you actually could, at a meeting in the future, open the warrant and close the warrant and have a very limited warrant. But we want to get this in front of the FinCom, as I said, potentially the Capcom, CPC folks, to get their input.
Next
I
meet-
would expect
yeah.
that we'd need you to
next meeting.
set a meeting date, set a special town meeting date and open the warrant. And if you're gonna tell me you're gonna open the warrant, we will have an idea of what the questions are gonna be, so you can close the warrant pretty quickly. So we can limit it, because we were all trying to avoid a special town meeting this fall, so the
Is there a
easier
reason it
is-
has to be fall?
Well, we won't they won't hold the vote, they won't hold the bid much longer than the fall.
No, I'm saying like, could it be like August, like what, how quickly?
What do we think the ability, well, so that's a good question for the clerk, because she has to organize that part of it. Her staff's getting ready to do early voting for the state election, the state primary, at the beginning of September, and so, we probably need a month anyway. And
People
put it on
are
May, July
away.
15th.
August. People are away in August as well, right? Maybe September?
Yeah, I mean, I wonder what our ability to get a quorum in August would be.
Yeah.
It'd be better than, it would be better than trying to do it in July, but.
Yeah.
Also, weekend or weeknight? I haven't heard back yet from the high school on dates, but she did say that they're gonna.
We need to go to the speak.
Thank you, Virginia. Sorry about that.
I did hear from the high school that they're going to be doing lighting work in the auditorium. So I don't know if that's going to be more in August than September. She's getting back to me with dates, but they do have that project online, so
And
August may
the
not.
board wants to consider if you want to do it a weeknight or a Saturday. If you're able to keep the warrant small and really on this topic, you should be able to do it on a weeknight like you did
let's say weeknight.
last fall, but.
It's the only item, right? Is there anything else you'd want to capture?
I was trying not to have a special time meeting at all, so I'm, not really.
I'm very unavailable. Something really good. Yeah.
Can I make-
Okay, so,
can I-
Jay?
The CPC meets next on Thursday, August 8th. We could discuss a grant request at that meeting.
Please plan on that.
Should we put in a request? Does the town, does that?
Tim usually handles that for us, so.
Thanks, Tim.
okay, so our next meeting is,
August 5th? Aside from the meeting that you want to do for goal setting, which we haven't set the date on yet.
right, but August 5th is our next meeting.
Yep.
At which point we'll be pre-CPC, but FinCom will have had a chance.
Your meeting is August 24th, John, your next meeting?
August or July?
No, July.
July?
Next week, July 24th.
Do you want a new agenda item?
Yeah.
I think we just need to have, and I think you did an amazing job in the time that you were given, and even if it's just the two of you, or the three or four, somebody, I think we just need to put together a clear outline of sort of what the options are. And then I think understanding, like, is single vote versus multi-vote that bit, like, if it's asking for free cash and asking for a bond, is that really that big of a deal, like a 1 vote versus 2 vote? I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I think if the sole theme of the meeting is town hall, like, I think that actually helps us, that people know that they're coming specifically for town hall. You're either coming to vote for it or you're coming to vote against it. It is what it is. So I don't know that in that sense I'm worried about us having multiple articles. But I think if.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, it is the town hall, town meeting. If you're for it, you vote for it. If you're against it, you vote against it. You're not gonna split votes. because we can't do it if you split votes.
I think town council will probably advise to have follow your normal warrant structure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I just mean, one of the options was, should you try to just bond it all because there's just one question?
Right.
Whereas I think if the meeting is about,
I think whatever makes financial
yeah,
sense.
yeah, we
That's
do,
more the issue.
Yeah,
I
it's
think.
more the issue of
Yep.
the cost of borrowing versus using what cash we've
What
already
we
collected.
already have, right, exactly.
I think it shows we're creative if we have multiple.
And that's right, that's what we want. We want voters to see that we're being really, really frugal with
Right.
taxpayer
Yep.
money.
so let's plan to review that August
August
5th.
5th.
And then we'll set a date for a town meeting. Corinne, if there's there's a date that gives y'all some breathing room? Monday, September 23rd. Okay, so maybe we hope to do an evening.
Is that a Monday, did you say?
Yeah.
Yep, we already have yeah, that's probably a good idea. That way it sort of falls between your two big, hairy things. Okay.
And can I just, so, do you want me, John, to send the proposal to the FinCom? Like, do you want me to start that, with, like a memo or something? Is that what you'd like?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think if you take the memo
Sure.
from today and then incorporate the additions from the comments from the select board and Jay as other options, and then
Right.
FinCom can chew over it and.
Yeah, and I think you're hearing from the board, we want to bond the least amount of money
Yeah.
possible
Sounds
in the most financially responsible way.
Okay.
Well said.
So whatever that looks like, I think is what we're asking.
What's that? I can't hear you.
Grant?
We have applied for a Mass Office of Disabilities grant. We may know by the time we're ready to do the town meeting, but we don't know. I couldn't say at this point. We had applied for $250,000. So
That's the max.
that's the max that we could apply for, so.
Okay. Well done. All right, I'm gonna move us on to the next topics that we can get out of here. For new business, we just have the resetting of the goal scheduling workshop. I had sent an email to folks asking if there was a preference between doing it, we did it in the evening last year, and then, but there was also an option for Saturday morning, July 27th, and I got split decisions from folks about which it was going to be. So, from the folks I heard of, 2 people said to do Monday evening and 1 person said to do Saturday morning.
Did you get mine?
No. What did you want to do?
Mine would be on Monday evening.
Monday evening, okay. So what was the date?
Monday, July 29th.
July 29th.
2 weeks from now.
2 weeks from, is that during our, oh, because we don't have.
We don't have a meeting on that date.
Yeah,
anymore.
we would normally have a meeting, but it would be the 3rd meeting, so it would just be a regularly scheduled date for us. Rosie, would that date, time work for you?
I just think I might be away that weekend, so
Yeah,
I'll
I
be
agree.
here Monday.
Okay, so we're gonna put it at Monday, July 29th.
Do you want to start it at 6 o'clock and have food again?
Yep, we'll do it at 6 PM. Does that work for, I know 6, is that too early, 6:30?
On a Monday, 6:30 would be.
6:30?
6:30? I'll propose that we do it at the town hall in the memorial room.
Town Hall Memorial Room, and there will be food.
Just look at my calendar.
Now, doing it in the memorial room means we won't be live with hybrid, but HWCAM can come and tape. We just won't have hybrid functionality.
Yep.
Which we don't always do for this meeting anyway, so
And
it's a
folks-
workshop.
Folks are welcome.
We're welcome to come
Yep.
in person, right?
All right.
We could start a GoFundMe that night for the town hall.
Yes, we could. All right, if there's any other new business?
It would be good to have a list of what kind of is open that we've kind of tabled for future meetings, and just so we can kind of make sure we check boxes, like you mentioned a couple things in the onset. Just so we have a running list. I'm sure you already have it, Joe.
Yeah.
Of open items, and so we make sure, I know when you meet with different folks to do the meeting agendas, that we kind of sprinkle all that in. Not that we're not, I just want to have a collection of open items.
Aren't there others too? Are there other open items?
Well, that's what I'm asking for, a list of open items.
Yeah. So I think
I'll pull those together.
something was, I think the flag policy, was it the flag policy or whatever it was that we tabled last week and we were at last meeting, and I thought we were going to bring it back tonight.
It was the rooms policy.
The room policy, yeah.
Yeah, and as I've said, I will not participate in that, but if somebody else would like
Yeah,
to
so
do
we
that,
should
that's
put
fine.
those all, that's what I was asking for.
I'll put 'em all on the list.
Name them all, like, what's open there, then we'll go around and prioritize, because we have a lot on our plates, I get it.
Okay.
So, I do think that's important.
All right. Anyone want to motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
I second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
9:22.
Wow, that was a